30 seconds ago, I just saw Steve Ducey on Fox and Friends say the highlight of his Super Bowl party for a Kansas native who was cheering on the Chiefs yesterday was his wife's chili. I would concur there, Steve. The food was the highlight of my Super Bowl party, and I'm guessing it was for you as well. Good morning. We're glad you're here. I know it's a rough morning across Kansas City, but we're going to make it after that absolute beatdown by the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. But I'll tell you what, and John and I touched on this briefly before we got on the air. I would rather lose a game like that. If you're going to lose a Super Bowl, I would rather it be in the fashion the Chiefs just got manhandled yesterday than end up in a situation where there's some, I don't know, late controversial call by the refs. You know how that's been a theme for the Chiefs the last few weeks. Combine that with some type of heartbreak at the very end, and then you get tricked into this place in the offseason of saying, we were so close. We were a field goal away. The best part here, John, is that the Chiefs are going to be scarred by this, and they are going to realize we got to make some improvements here, most notably on the offensive line. That's the place to start, as we've known all season long.
A game like this would tell on some of the veterans there's no need to keep the band together necessarily here.
Absolutely.
So, as I was saying to you, I'm a football fan 365, so it's next year right now. But I am glad we're not talking about a ref's call or a Matt Nagy play call or an Andy Reid timeout or, a player drop, a fumble, whatever.
Listen.
It was a comprehensive embarrassment.
It was. It was a comprehensive embarrassment is an outstanding way to put this thing. That's exactly what it was. And I'm watching this game last night, and it was very obvious what the game plan was for the Eagles. To their credit, we knew and we worried all week long about this defensive line for Philadelphia. We knew they had a great one. But Vic Fangio, that defensive coordinator, basically said, I have no respect for the Chiefs' offensive line. I don't have to blitz these guys. And he knew that Mahomes struggled much more when he can't figure out what's going on in zone coverage. So they said, instead of bringing 5 or 6 guys and having Patrick beat us, we're going to basically allow our defensive line to chew up the Chiefs' offensive line and sit back and wait for him to mess up. And it worked to a T.
To your point, if they send 5 guys, he can find a hole.
Yeah.
They were just rushing 4, so he was looking at 7.
Yes.
And so he has nowhere to go.
And he's looking at 7, and he's got 2 seconds to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
Because that defensive line,
which one of these guys is closest to being open,
is barreling down on him. Listen, these are obviously the best of the best in the world at doing this. And I don't know what the Chiefs could have done differently to win this game outside of try to sneak a 12th man on the field, to have a 6th offensive lineman and have the refs not notice, which is not feasible. But the one thing I kept saying is it seemed like they stuck with the original game plan for too long at some point.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm like, it was very evident after about 2 or 3 drives that whatever they drew up was not going to work. They had to start moving that pocket a lot faster than they started doing it and just get Patrick out of there and let him buy himself some time. But it never came to fruition. I mean, they did a little bit of that late, but let's be honest, the score was 40-22. The score was really 40-6. I mean, that's what that game was yesterday. It was horrible.
Yeah, for Mahomes in the pocket, you get out of the pocket. Again, there's 7 guys there. It's just 4 that chased you out.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 7 guys to try to evade now.
Now, Andy Reid after the game, a man, a few words, but here's what he said about the rough day at the office, and that's an understatement.
Today was a rough day. We didn't really play well in any of the phases. Didn't coach good enough. They did a nice job. I'm proud of our guys, though, for the battle, the fight that they put in throughout the year, and all the games that they played here over the last few years. So my hat goes off to the guys for that. And we'll learn from this. Like most games here, when you don't do very well, you learn from it as a coach, you learn from it as a player, and you move on.
As Andy said there, the games the guys have played here over the last few years, I thought to myself, this is why a three-peat has never happened. They would have had to have won 10 playoff games in a row going back to the 2022 season, when they beat the Jaguars, the Bengals, and then the Eagles to win Super Bowl 57. Last year in the playoffs, it was 4 games. It was the Dolphins in that -30 game at Arrowhead. They went on the road to Buffalo, on the road to Baltimore, and then beat the 49ers in Super Bowl 58. And then this year, games 8 and 9 were the Texans and the Bills at home, and then the 10th game in a row to complete the three-peat was the Eagles. And it just takes, if you're going to beat 10 straight teams of this caliber, you can't have a bad day. Now, I think if these two teams play 10 times, yeah, the Eagles might win 7 times. I don't deny that. But the Chiefs are not going to look like they did yesterday all 10 times. They might not win the most games of the 10 matchups, but they will not look like they did yesterday. That's indisputable. But that's the thing. That's why no one's ever done this. When you play 10 straight games to try to win 3 straight Super Bowls, you cannot have an off day. And yes, a lot of these games, not most of them, but you look at the last 10 games that they had played in the playoffs, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 of them were at Arrowhead Stadium. And of course, when you're playing at home, there's something to be said for that. The postseason, especially, getting the home field here in Kansas City is highly valuable. But you can't go to a situation like that against a team of that caliber on both sides of the line. Offensive line was great for Philadelphia. They've got one of the biggest offensive lines ever and talented as well. And then a defensive line of this caliber and expect that things are going to go your way. You just can't. Now, Mark, you're sitting there with your Royals hat on, and are you counting down to spring training this morning? Is that what's on your mind?
Oh, yeah. I think pitchers and catchers report this week. Let's go.
Did you hit any fancy parlays yesterday, or was it a big goose egg for you?
No, it was a bust. Only hit one little thing. If they hadn't taken away the touchdown from Hollywood Brown, I would have won $180 on a touchdown parlay.
Oh, is that right?
But that's all right. Those things happen.
Man, I'm sorry about that.
It's all right.
That's why you got to simple. I went simple, over 48.5.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Now, I lost plenty too, but, the over 48.5, I'm like, at least give me that here in this game.
I was all over the under on Saquon all week. I was telling everybody, hit that under 113 yards.
Oh, and you hit that? That was money.
I didn't get the money. I mean, that was in a parlay. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Fair enough. I don't
know if we have a segment coming up on how to handle Philly fans, but I was in a fraternity, so I'm used to some harassing statements, so I can either save that for later or give you one right now if you want it.
Well, I don't want to wait any longer. Okay. Give me one right now.
Right. Well, it's nice that they won the second Lombardi because their other trophy was getting kind of lonely there in the case. Right? So go ahead and take a picture of the two of them and then hold that up to a mirror, and you'll see what it's like then at Arrowhead.
Very, very good. I like that.
Show some RESPICT.
On the text line, I knew this was coming at some point. Trump put the kiss of death on Mahomes and the Chiefs. Oh, my gosh. You got to be kidding me.
Did you see the selfie with Jackson Mahomes?
I did see Jackson Mahomes getting the selfie with number 47. That's the only mistake Trump has made during his first, whatever it is, 3-4 weeks in office, taking a selfie with Jackson Mahomes. Stay away. Don't let that juju get near you. Don't do it. Oh, man. Well, listen, there is still a lot to talk about, a lot to react to. Commercial-wise, Trump was there. Quentin Lucas got upset with me yesterday on X, the mayor of Kansas City. Was not too happy with me over something I put up on social media. I will share that with you. Coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio. 6:20 it is. Good to be here on a Monday morning. Tough morning, I know, for Kansas City after that Super Bowl beatdown yesterday. But I know we're all in a rough mood. I understand. You ate too much. You might have drank too much. You're just not feeling like yourself, right? That's entirely possible. And that's true for many of us. But we're still Kansas City. We still have the best quarterback, head coaching duo in the NFL. And that beatdown gives this team a chance to really look itself in the mirror and say, okay, we got away with some things this year. we made some things with this team look not as bad as they actually were. And now you've got to look at it and say to yourself, okay, where can we and where are we going to improve? And the first place that's got to happen is the offensive line. But there was a lot going on yesterday during the game and, before the game and on social media and whatnot. And if you missed it, there was an amazing moment. And the reason I use the word amazing is because of how much the world has changed over the last several years. There was a moment where Donald Trump, who was the first sitting president to ever show up to the Super Bowl, walks onto the field. And Chris Jones is kind of lingering. The Chiefs' star defensive tackle is lingering around Trump. Now, Trump's got security around him and everything else, right? But Jones's teammates are all like on the field getting ready for the game and the whole thing, stretching, working it out. And Jones is kind of lingering around Trump. And Trump waves to the crowd. He turns his back to Chris Jones. It wasn't on purpose. He was, a lot going on, right? So Chris Jones must get his attention. And Trump turns around and shakes his hand. And it's a moment that if you haven't seen the picture, if you haven't seen the video, I posted it on X yesterday at Pete Mundo. And I shared the video and I wrote, Chris Jones went out of his way to shake President Trump's hand. Between this and Jones's crying to the national anthem, which he always cries during the anthem, it's a staple for Chris Jones to cry during the anthem, which has bothered a lot of people. I've seen some of the wokest of the woke in Kansas City be like, why is this guy always crying during the anthem? What's wrong with him? What is he, some kind of a patriot? Well, he's talked about how he gets emotional during the anthem before a big game, and good for him. It's hard not to sometimes. So I wrote, between this and crying during the anthem, woke KC ain't happy, I bet. And I put a little emoji in there afterwards. So this was probably mid-first quarter. I saw the video. I posted it to X. And Mayor Lucas was not happy with me. Now, I think he really wasn't happy with the Chiefs. He was taking his frustrations out on me. And I'm okay with that. I can handle it. I'm a big boy. So he shared my video. He goes, we don't give a damn, man. We want our team to get a first down. And I was like, okay.
Such a nice man.
It's all good. I'm okay. I saw his response, and I just laughed to myself. I wasn't bothered by it. I wasn't upset by it. I just chuckled, and I said, dude, we're all going through it right now. We all want a first down, but we also can appreciate Chris Jones going out of his way in front of the entire world to shake Donald Trump's hand. Because when this guy was in office for the first 4 years, it was especially popular for athletes and celebrities by and large to not only not show Donald Trump as the president any respect, but go out of your way to disrespect the president of the United States when it was Donald Trump. That was a thing for his first 4 years in office. Let's not forget. Athletes, some teams didn't want to go to the White House. They boycotted going to the White House, the whole thing. Now, before a game, before the biggest game of Chris Jones's career, because you were going for a three-peat, you were trying to complete something that has never been done before in the NFL's history, which is win 3 straight Super Bowls, Chris Jones is seeking out the president of the United States. He's shaking his hand, knowing full well that cameras in every corner of that venue are watching Donald Trump in that moment. And there's Chris Jones wanting to make sure that he shakes Donald Trump's hand. All right? And Donald Trump, it's funny, Trump's a big guy. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He looked tiny standing next to Chris Jones. Now, I know that's not hard to do. Look small standing next to Chris Jones, who's like, 6'6", 275, 280, 300 pounds, whatever he is. He's a monster. But Trump looked tiny standing next to Chris Jones. And I got a kick out of that when I was looking at that video and watching now that famous photo, which you can see on my X at Pete Mundo. But it says something about where we're at as a country in 2025. And we've talked a lot about the changing things happening in our culture. I mean, the end racism nonsense not being in the back of the end zone, right? That was one of the things that just kind of stood out last week, where you said to yourself, yeah, these things have changed, times have changed. Chris Jones going out of his way to say, yeah, hello, Mr. President, can I shake your hand? To hearing Travis Kelce last week and Patrick Mahomes saying, yeah, it's an honor to have the sitting president at the game. All those things are true. And it goes to show you how much different it seems to be this time around politically and culturally with Donald Trump than it was the first time around with Donald Trump. Now, Trump was at the game, but he appeared to be quite bored with the game, and I can't blame him for that. So it was about 9:27 Eastern time last night that Trump started putting out some posts on his Truth Social account. And this one came out. Once again, I think the guy's attention span isn't great, and there's something to be said for that. Not having a great attention span is what actually makes him unique. He puts out on social media, quote, for far too long, the United States has minted pennies, which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful. I have instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time. Oh, that's fantastic. Middle of the Super Bowl, he's there, and he's tweeting about wasteful spending of printing pennies. I am okay with that. I'll add, I don't know, and I'd like to find out after this post how many pennies we print, and if it costs us 2 cents to make a penny, we are wasting our time. Outside of corny coin collectors, who's still using pennies? What are you possibly doing with pennies right now in this economy? You tell me. You got the wrong mic on there, John. Wrong mic. You got Mark's mic.
I got you. Here I am over here.
There you are.
Yeah, boomers use them just to prove a point that they can count change.
Yeah.
I like to whip them out there and confuse the clerk.
Well, that is certainly a valuable thing to use them for. But for the rest of us, it's kind of like, you know what? I think we'll pass on this.
No more fountains in the mall to flip them in,
Yeah.
That's not any fun anymore.
You know what? That was the last time they were actually valuable. That goes back to when I was a kid, though.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, if Claire said to me, hey, Dad, can I throw some pennies in the fountain at the mall, at Oak Park Mall? I'd be like, yeah, sure. I got to go get some pennies, though, because I don't have any. I mean, you just don't carry them around, right? But my dad was fired up because he texted me saying, hey, I was a penny collector back in the 60s, and my penny is going to be worth millions one day. You just keep hanging on to my penny collection. Okay, Dad, I guess. I can hang on to your penny collection and see what they're worth one day. But someone's got to lug them around for the next, 30 years. And I'm not sure that's going to be me, but I'll try my best. Oh, man, 913-4087-957. Well, I will say that Donald Trump did get a hero's welcome yesterday. Did you watch the national anthem, which, man, can we just get our buddy from St. Louis, Gerald Wilson, in there for the anthem every single time? These guys that put on these anthems. And did you hear what he was doing at the end of the anthem? Did you notice that he strung out?
Bray.
He strung out the second to last line of the national anthem 3 times. 3 times. This guy dragged it out yesterday.
Like a Neil Diamond concert, bro.
John Batiste, God bless him. But I'm like, dude, stop what you're doing. When the second the song came on, I said, this is going to be a 2.5-minute anthem. That's what this is going to be. It's going to be a 2.5-minute national anthem. It's going to be all about him. Instead of just representing the country, letting it rip, and making it damn good. But anyway, Donald Trump was flashed on the screen during the national anthem. And it was obviously being shown also in the stadium. Because the minute Trump got shown on the big screen inside of the stadium in New Orleans, this is what it sounded like during the anthem.
Through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch.
That's a big, noticeable round of applause for the 47th president of the United States. It is another sea change and an example of a sea change from 8 years ago, just like Chris Jones going out of his way before the game to shake Donald Trump's hand. That was, a raucous round of applause, John.
That cheer for Trump was like when you would hear if you had a flyover.
Yeah.
Which they had for a dome stadium. Well,
Well, that was commented on at the Super Bowl party we were at last night.
yeah, that cheer that wells up around the anthem sounded like there was a flyover.
Yes,
coming, right?
yes. It is kind of goofy to do the flyover when nobody, in the stadium can see it. But for the 100 million people watching at home, it is still pretty cool to see. But yeah, you saw that and you said to yourself last night, man, this was not happening 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. It wasn't happening. And here we are in 2025, and this guy's showing up at the Super Bowl, first sitting president to do that. They flash him on the big screen during the anthem, and the place goes absolutely bonkers. 913-408-7957. We're going to make it. We're going to be okay. Kansas City will be back. And now we just got to think about fixing the offensive line. Susan's in Lee's Summit. Good morning, Susan. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. I have to tell you, we have a use for pennies. My husband and I make a game called Penny Drop. And, of course, you need pennies for that game. It's kind of like left, right, center, if you've never heard of it. Be happy to send you one, but we need the pennies.
So you want Donald Trump to keep making pennies, even if they cost 2 cents to make a 1 cent penny?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's enough in circulation that our games will be okay.
You know what? Hey, how about this? In this environment, I don't know about your economic situation, Susan, but if you start trading people for their pennies and you're giving them, let's say $1.10 for every dollar in pennies that you give them, you might be able to do just fine on that penny game you're trying to play there.
Hey, that's an idea. I'll have to try it.
Well, I like the fact that you're laughing away this morning, Susan. We all need that this morning.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Have a great day. 913-408-7957. So Trump says he's going to tell the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, to stop making pennies. And I'm fine with that. I don't even know where I would look for pennies. I think the girls have some pennies in their bedroom somewhere that they've been stacking up. But, I'm in a place now where even on Friday night, we went out to eat, and on the way home, we say, oh, crud, we don't have any cash to pay the babysitter. Does she take Venmo? Nope. All right, we got to go to a bank now. We got to go get cash on the way home and got to draw out cash to pay the babysitter. I just don't carry a lot of cash. Any cash, clearly. Never mind pennies. What am I going to do with pennies? I mean, I do everything in my power to make sure I never have change on me. Because at this point, I find it annoying and there's no use for it. It's not even like you can use it for parking downtown or something like that. We were downtown. We went downtown on Saturday. We went down to Union Station on Saturday, checked out the scene down there, and it was a blast. Listen, there's a lot of things to knock Kansas City for. There's a lot of issues. We talk about that. But they do an outstanding job putting together Union Station with all the Chiefs-themed items that they have down there, and the place was packed. So we went down to River Market after that and went to one of our old favorite pizza places down there with the girls. They had never been there, down to River Market. They had never been to this restaurant. So we park right in front of it in River Market, and, you got to pay to park, but you got to swipe your card. It's like, $3.25 or whatever it is. So I'm not carrying around the coinage to pay for $3.25 of parking. So you swipe your card. That's what you do. There's no point in having pennies or, frankly, change for that matter these days, John.
I concur. It's a bad habit I have. So I'll carry this crap around and I'll have 69, 74 cents worth. That's quite a fistful of change.
That is.
Right? And I'll have it with me, except when I need it.
Yeah.
It's in the car. It's on the dresser.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
That one time that you do need it, you don't have it.
The one time I could use it.
Yeah. On the text line, Pete, it's stupid to not have cash. Well, thank you.
Such a nice man.
Listen, I'm not saying I want to purposely never have cash, but usually I'll have $100 on me. I run out of it, and then I just don't go to the bank again for a while. I just, the place I bank, there's not a ton of them directly around me. I've had the bank for, 15 years now, so I'm not going to change it. It's one of the national ones. But it's just like I don't have a reason right now to rush to the bank to go carry cash. I don't. I'd like to have it on me more frequently than I do, but then I get in a routine of life and I just don't need it for anything. So it's like, what's the point? And if you're saying I need cash because the world's going to end or the banking system's going to collapse, I promise you I am not taking out enough cash to make sure I'm protected from that. I'm not. I'm not going to be hoarding cash under my mattress. No way, no how. With 3 little kids and a dog at home, that's a recipe for disaster.
We got jobbed by a cab driver in Paris. You know, we're coming off the train at 10 at night. We're going up to Debacle Airport to stay for the night. It's a ride, you know, and so we get there and try to, don't take cards. I'm like, give me a break, right? Seriously, he wanted cash. Well, I was like, we got no cash. I got $25 for your $75. Suddenly he, okay.
Okay.
But
Suddenly he takes cards.
You will find instances where, you know, all it takes is once and you'll remember it, unfortunately.
Well, that may happen. That may happen at some point in my life, but it hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened yet. 913-408-7957. Pete, what do you give the panhandlers? I give them a wave, okay? That's what I give the panhandlers, especially my favorite guy over here at 435 in Metcalf down the road from the radio station. He gets a big old wave. Even the one down off Southwest Boulevard that I see by my barber. That's what he gets, a big old wave. Bongino coming up after Keatsman at 10 o'clock on KCMO. So I am happy for one kid and one kid only today after the Chiefs got demolished in Super Bowl 59. And that is Trey Howard. Now you're like, wait, who's Trey Howard? Why should I care about Trey Howard? Who is this kid? Trey Howard is a 10-year-old boy who was injured in Philadelphia after that plane crashed into the downtown Philadelphia area 2 Fridays ago. And this 10-year-old boy was in the backseat of his own car with his father and his 2 siblings. They were just going out to get donuts on a Friday night. And the 10-year-old boy ended up saving his sister's life when his father said, when that plane crashed, and they're sitting there in their car, right near where the plane crashes into the street. And the father says to his 10-year-old boy, Trey, the father's Andre, cover up your sister, protect your sister. He does it. And Trey Howard ends up nearly losing his life. It wasn't looking good on Friday night, moments after that plane crash happened. And Trey had pieces of the airplane literally hanging off of his body, shrapnel and things like that. He was in a coma for the weekend 2 weekends ago. He wakes up on Monday and he says 2 things to his father. One, he wants to find out whether or not he missed the Super Bowl. He didn't. And number 2, the second thing he asked about was, Daddy, did I save my sister? 10-year-old Trey Howard is a hero. And as somebody who had to suffer through Eagles victories when I was at Villanova, I cannot stand Philadelphia sports fans. They are bottom of the barrel and the absolute worst. But this morning, if I find anything to be happy about after the Chiefs got blown out, it's that Trey Howard, who is a hero, gets to celebrate a victory for his favorite team. And here's a story from ABC 7.
Sound like a missile was firing bullets, metal at my car, everyone else's car.
Andre immediately backed up his car while his son Trey covered his little sister, protecting her.
I turn around, he has metal out the side of his head.
A police officer rushed them to the hospital where he had emergency brain surgery.
What were you told Friday?
That it was a strong chance he might not survive.
Miraculously, he's now awake and recovering, even talking.
He says thank you to everybody. He cries, Daddy, I'm a celebrity. No, you're bigger than a celebrity. You're a superhero.
A little superhero that has been through so much in the last few days. To lift his spirits, one of his favorite NBA players, the 76ers, Tyrese Maxey, visited him in the hospital. Trey's family says they are so grateful for everyone's support, but most importantly, to still have their little boy.
So this morning, I can take solace in being happy for 10-year-old Trey Howard. I can. I'm not happy for anybody else. The city of Philadelphia was burning last night. Literally, I mean, I'm reading the story here, headlined, "Looting and Fires Break Out in Philadelphia After the Eagles Win the Super Bowl," because that's how that city rolls. They burn down their neighbor's property when they accomplish an impressive sports feat, which is possibly the dumbest thing ever, but that's Philadelphia for you. But I will be happy for Trey Howard this morning. I will think about Trey Howard today, and I'm not saying it should in any way dull the pain of that Super Bowl embarrassment last night, but it might make you sit back and say to yourself, we've got two of these. The Chiefs will be back, knock on wood, in a position to get to a Super Bowl again. And if nothing else, 10-year-old Trey Howard, who saved his sister's life during that tragic plane crash 2 Fridays ago in Philadelphia, is someone I can be happy for today. Just one. I can only find one. But I'll be happy for Trey. And in the meantime, hopefully this motivates the Kansas City Chiefs. If they had lost a very close game, you might have sat there and said to yourself, oh, man, we were, a field goal away from a three-peat. This team is fine. No, it's not fine. This team could have been 12-5 this year, 13-4. I mean, we can look at a bunch of games and say, a play here, a play there. They're 11-6, 12-5, 13-4, whatever it might be. The greatness of Mahomes and Reed and Spagnuolo on the defensive side overshadowed some issues that did exist all season long. So now you use that blowout loss to go back to the drawing board. First off, fix the offensive line, for crying out loud, and then also make some tweaks where you need to make some tweaks. And look at this game and say to yourself, okay, how do we avoid this from ever happening again? This can be incredible motivation for this team moving forward, and I hope that it is. 913-408-7957. We are here as a free therapist all morning long on KCMO. Trust me, the hourly rate is much cheaper on 95.7 FM. We'll get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. We could just do the ugly. We'll do the good, the bad, and the ugly in 15 minutes on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So I don't know if you saw the cost of just like drinks, food, basic things in the arena yesterday at Super Bowl 59. There was a cocktail that cost $59 yesterday. There were salads going for $100. A beer was $17 at the game. And not like when you go to Arrowhead and the beer is $16, but it's a 24-ounce beer. This was a 12-ounce aluminum can beer for $17 at Super Bowl 59. It's totally out of control. In many respects, what the Super Bowl has become, it's really the economy in the sense that it has been a very good few years for those at the top end of the economy. For those on Main Street, it's been a struggle. We know that. We've talked about it. It's one of the reasons that Donald Trump was elected, right? But that was on full display at Super Bowl 59 when you looked at some of the ridiculous prices that are just unfathomable for regular people. But there are a lot of people who did very well during Joe Biden's 4 years in office. Now, they're not the workers, right? They're not. I mean, the economy at large was not in a good place. That's what people said leading up to the election. But if you were somebody who was, maybe just an investor, maybe just looking at a 401k that had a lot of dough in it, you might have said, what's wrong with the last few years? It's been great. It's been absolutely outstanding. Yeah, okay, it has been if that's you. If you're living off investments. We talked to our buddy Mark Falter, who you hear on Saturday and Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock all the time about that. But for a lot of people, it was like, well, I'd love to invest more in my 401k, but I can't because the cost of everything has gone up, 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 up. So I was thinking about this yesterday in the wake of some of the insane prices at the Super Bowl, how out of touch the event has become for 99% of Americans, and thinking about what Donald Trump might be doing with the economy at large. And I believe that Donald Trump is going to go into the next few months and not worry one bit about the stock market. And I say this as somebody who likes the stock market, would like to see the stock market go up for personal reasons, like we all would, right? If you have a retirement account, you want to see the stock market do well. But I believe that Trump is in a place where he views himself as a historic figure who can change the outcome and the future of America for the better. And there might be some short-term economic pain, or I should say stock market pain, that comes with it. And there will be media headlines that freak out about this, and Trump's not going to care. And frankly, I'm not convinced that he should care. If the stock market got you elected, well, Kamala Harris would be in the White House right now. And for the last 4 years, Joe Biden tried to brag about the stock market. And look how that worked out. The stock market is a part of the economy, but the stock market and Wall Street is not Main Street. And one of the things that Donald Trump is doing here that we're seeing on display right now is literally trying to cut everything he can from the federal budget within reason. And there's a belief from Trump to his Secretary of Treasury to obviously all the people involved with Doge that one of the ways we can just absolutely kick down inflation is by stopping government spending. It will have a major impact on the economy because now we're not borrowing money and basically printing money to create our own inflation. That's what we've been doing for far too long. There's a part of it that I think Donald Trump says to himself, you know what? We are going to have asset deflation, and Main Street is going to book some wins over Wall Street. And he's not going to worry about the headlines from CNBC or MSNBC or CNN. Oh, the stock market's not nearly where it was, not doing as well as it was under Joe Biden. He's not going to worry about that. He's not going to flinch. If the stock market is down, housing prices come down, deep budget cuts are enacted, and you have systems of control around future spending in place, well, that can be a major long-term win for Americans across the economic spectrum. Trust me, the top of the food chain is going to be okay. But if you get less deficit spending, that means less borrowed money, which then rewards Donald Trump in a couple of ways. First off, and more importantly, benefits the American people in a couple of ways. Wage suppression goes away. You've got tighter border security. You're going to put money into people's pockets. Housing costs come down. Mortgage costs come down. Rates come down. And this is a kind of budget plan that rewards Main Street. Instead of creating an economy over the last few years, which is what we've done, that benefits people who are involved with the government, benefits people at the highest end of the socioeconomic ladder, people who are living off investments and other things like that, but kills the little guy or little gal. Or even the they, them. Kills them all. And tariffs may be a necessary part of the solution. I'm not inherently a big tariff guy, but it may be part of the solution as Donald Trump tries to hit the reset button on the economy as a whole. And it's not about just tweaking tax rates by 2% here or there. That's not what it's about. And to tie this all back to sports, I mean, one of the great scams going right now, and this is something that is true for sports owners across the board. Sports owners have long used their teams to avoid millions in taxes. And I know some of you are going to say that, oh, this is sounding a little lefty here. No, this is about hitting the reset button on the economy. That's what this is about. I mean, right now, if you look at it, there's a chance, and there's been some talk about this, that the Trump administration may do away with write-offs on depreciated sports team salaries. That is out there right now. Right now, sports teams owners, including, the Hunts, John Sherman, everybody involved with our local pro sports teams, they can use salaries of players to basically get tax write-offs. Now, you might say, well, that's a business expense. Okay, but it's also a game that is played. It's why that you see so many of these sports owners paying billions and billions and billions of dollars more than they ever have for these sports teams. The appreciation of professional sports franchises has skyrocketed the last 10, 15, 20 years. And it's because there are major tax benefits to owning these sports teams. You've got provisions in the U.S. tax code that allow them to basically figure out ways around how to use all the expenses they have on their sports teams to benefit that business and then also benefit themselves. I'll give you a great example. Steve Ballmer. He's the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, CEO of Microsoft. He has created, according to IRS records, the LA Clippers into a business that reported $700 million in losses for tax purposes in recent years. So not only does Steve Ballmer not have to pay taxes on any real-world Clippers profits, despite the fact that these pro sports teams make a fortune, he can use the tax write-off to offset his other income. So there are loopholes, and, listen, I understand that, and that these CEOs are job creators, that these CEOs employ a lot of people, right? But you still have loopholes within the code that are not beneficial for Main Street. They're not beneficial for the little guy. And these holes exist all over the U.S. tax code. And whether it's little things like tariffs, whether it's bigger things like closing some of these loopholes, whatever it might be, you've got an economy largely driven by big government that has become completely unfair for the average worker. And it's one of the many things that Donald Trump has to do as soon as possible to try to bring some of these costs under control, kick down inflation, and make Main Street pick up some wins when they haven't picked up wins in decades. They just haven't. And there's a lot of little ways he can go about doing that to improve the situation across the board. And it's tweaks here and there is largely what it is.